Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and I'm back again with another hands-on gameplay impressions from Summer Games Fest Playdays. And I figured, we got the Capcom stuff out of the way, and today we're showing you some of the amazing .emu stuff that they have coming, which is available on Steam. But I also wanted to take this time and probably get this one out of the way. And let me tell you about one of my games of the shows. Now, I've thought about it, and I have two, and they're very different, and they have different perspectives and different types of gameplay, and frankly, one's 2D, one's 3D. And I just wanted to talk about what I really felt was my personal game of the show, and that is Sword of the Sea by Giant Squid. So, yeah, this game is the next game in the, I don't know if you call it a series or franchise, but if you've been following along with Giant Squid's game releases, you definitely know something's cooking beneath, the surface there as far as their in-game universe goes. But yes, so the creators of Journey then moved on to create their own studio, Giant Squid, and made Abzu, which was the fantastic, sort of vibes, snorkeling, scuba diving simulator game. And then The Pathless, the much more arcadey, fast-paced bow and arrow with like the crazy eagle or falcon character game that came out on the launch of the PS5. So their next game is Sword of the Sea, a game that's basically a hoverboarding game where you hoverboard on a sword, a magical sword, and you terraform the landscape, kind of like Flower, but not really. A little bit like that. As you zip around through various different biomes to basically bring the sea back to this barren planet. The demo we played at Summer Games Fest was in a desert environment. There are other ones, though, of course. It's the one you see mostly in the trailers, though. And yeah, you basically we just got the general feel. Now, looking at the game, yeah, it looks cool. It definitely looks like in the vein of what Giant Squid usually does. But how does it control? Because the other games, you were swimming, you were running or jumping a lot, like, or hovering on a falcon or just walking in Journey. So how does a game feel where you're on a sort of constantly moving hoverboard? And that was my main concern going into this, because it really could go either way. Luckily for us, Giant Squid has been using the past 5 years to not just sit on its thumbs. It's actually been working very, very hard behind the scenes. And a lot of that was just getting the hoverboard mechanic right, from what I talked to at the various developers at the show floor. And yeah, this is probably the first and most important thing I can say is the hoverboard feels fantastic, and the platforming and jumping on the hoverboard feels fantastic. And when you leap in this game, you're not hard committed to flying whatever direction you leapt from. You can actually pivot and change your trajectory midair and jump back, and it makes the more intense platforming segments in this game much, much, much easier to deal with than you would think being a hoverboarding game. So yeah, like visually the game looks great. It uses a very similar aesthetic to past Giant Squid games. And one thing I really like about this is that it is somewhat minimalistic, but it's not too minimalistic. Like some games, they we're going for a minimalistic style, and it basically just means, soft shading, no textures, basically blocks and shapes. And that's not true of Giant Squid's games. It's not hyper detailed. It's certainly not going for any photorealistic look, thank God. But it's also not so minimalistic that it feels like it's just sort of, I guess I have to use my imagination. That's not the case here. This actually does have detail where it's appropriate, and it does have intriguing and beautiful environment details and stuff. So that I really like how this game's approach to its artistic look and style is going, because it's got enough stuff to be detailed, but not so much stuff that it's like, it's this hyper detailed thing. And the other thing too is that when you see the waves of sand moving and rippling across the environment with the wind, and then you're hoverboarding over these waves, it's sort of this and very much like testament to the skill of the programmers and the designers at Giant Squid, because you don't have this weird massive clipping problem. Like, your character rolls over the waves of sand naturally, and it looks really, really good, and it's really shocking almost, because it's like one of the things where, even though this may not be considered like, is this truly next gen, it feels kind of next gen to me, because it does something a lot of games of this caliber would just not have any solution for, and you actually do seem to interact with the landscape in a really natural manner. So what is the game? What do you do in the game? Well, you zip around on your hoverboard. You look for certain points in this environment to basically bring the sea back. And it does a sort of like almost interesting, it almost feels like time capsule where say you activate an area with your, you have a resonant button and a jump button, and that's it. And the resonant button is basically like just big call out, pretty similar to like Journey and Abzu and other games. And say like you resonate in an area and you basically change it, and the sort of like almost like Okami flowers, you see the ocean environment sort of start from a center point and spread out and take over, and this area becomes it's now a water-based area. And then you'll see this river, the singular river, form through the sand, and it trails off in a direction, and you go and you follow that river that's cutting through the sand, almost like it's a thing out of time. So I actually really like that mechanic. The only way I can really describe it is it feels like you're opening rifts and tears in time to when this planet was actually a beautiful ocean, and then you're sort of bringing that ocean back to this sort of like Dune-like environment in the demo we played at SGF. And then, of course, you'll do other things where you do have tricks and stuff. It's not super Tony Hawk or anything. You basically, if you're airborne, you can mash the X button or some of the other face buttons to give yourself little like tricks and stuff in the air. You'll collect these little triangular objects, which you'll then use to like give to other characters in the environment to help bring the ocean back. Of course, it's nothing very in depth or involved, and it does a lot of visual storytelling instead of dialogue storytelling, which I love. I love a really good visual story told game, and Sword of the Sea looks to continue that tradition from Giant Squid very faithfully here. So it's very cool. You'll do things where, like, say if you bring the ocean back, and kelp will come up, and you can actually ride the kelp like a vertical lift. You can bounce off of big giant jellyfish for platforming sequences and stuff. So there's a lot of just fun stuff to it. And usually, like, you look for points where you drive your sword into the ground, and that'll like cause like a big massive like a terraforming shift in the environment. I don't really know what's going on. Your character seems to be some sort of sentinel, or he's called the Wraith, as I learned from the developers. And we see at the beginning of the game, he's in a cave sort of like as stone, and then this lone drop of water drips down from the ceiling onto him and reactivates the Wraith and reactivates his sword. And he basically, he's going around the environment. You do see there's mystery and intrigue where he sees other characters watching him and the environment, and it's all very like interesting, but not overbearing with the cutscenes, with the narration. Because again, it's all visual storytelling, which I love. And then the last thing I really, really, really need to talk about is Austin Wintory is back once again, longtime collaborator with Giant Squid, and he's doing the music again here, and it's fantastic. And one of the things I love so much about what we played at Summer Games Fest was how the music would dynamically shift and change when you completed tasks in the environment and brought more of the sea back, and you would hear instrumentation brought back. When water gets involved, like he adds instruments to the underlying soundtrack, which it starts out, obviously like a little more not minimalistic, but like, a little more low, not a ton of instrumentation. And then as you do more and more stuff, more instruments are added, and it has this very dynamic, beautiful sounding. And he's brought in human voice, so there's various different choirs, like children's and I think adult as well, for different parts of the environment or parts of the game. So he's using instruments and human voice and different age and types of human voice. And there's this really great, it's not this quiet, empty, barren world. Like, yeah, it's a desert, but there's beauty in the desert too, and the audio is actually going. And that's actually the one thing I was really happy to hear about, or just hear in general, in this game demo, was that the music was beautiful, and it did accompany the game, and it was dynamic, and it did really complement everything you were doing in the game and the environment. And this game played like a dream. It looked like a dream, controlled like a dream, it sounded like a dream. So Sword of the Sea is my game of the show, or at least one of them. There's a very different game I'll talk about later, but this is a fantastic game. It comes out in August. I think it's on PC and PlayStation to start with, and it's just an absolutely wonderful experience. It definitely continues the tradition of Giant Squid very faithfully. But it's also uniquely different because it's in this in between where Abzu was sort of an environmental swimming simulator, and then Pathless was a lot more arcadey. There was like shooting with the bow and arrow, and this is like somewhere in the middle with like a trick style Tony Hawk kind of a vibe where it's like it's moody and atmospheric, and it's not necessarily intense with action or combat or anything like that. It's like this sort of fast-paced, brisk in between. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful game. I can't wait to play it. I can't wait to get more hands-on time with it. I'm so looking forward to this game. It was the first thing I played at the show, and it would set the precedent as one of the best things I played at the show. And I hope you guys will get a chance to check this out. I mean, please check it out when it comes out. It comes out in a couple months, not long to go now, and it's just an absolutely gem of a game. The kind of game you want to see games being made in this industry. This is a standout. I loved it. Sword of the Sea, game of the show. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the channel later, dudes.